Hello and welcome to the English Listen Lab. Today, we bring you an extraordinary and inspiring story for C2 level English learners. This is the journey of a boy who went from being weak and bullied to becoming a world champion in martial arts. After suffering a brutal attack, he made a life-changing decision to take control of his destiny. Through years of relentless training and self-discovery, he transformed into a fighter who not only mastered his craft, but also inspired countless others. Let's dive into this gripping tale. From weak to warrior, the journey of a champion. Chapter 1. A childhood of fear. Ethan had always been small for his age. Thin, frail, and quiet, he was an easy target. At school, he avoided eye contact, walked with his head down, and prayed that each day would pass without incident. But bullies have a way of sensing fear, and Ethan's timid nature made him an irresistible victim. Every recess was a battlefield. The older kids would push him around, call him names, and sometimes steal his lunch. Teachers rarely intervened. The world seemed cruel and indifferent to his suffering. His only escape was reading, immersing himself in stories of heroes who fought against all odds. But he knew that in real life, no hero was coming to save him. Then came the day that changed everything. Chapter 2. The Breaking Point. It started like any other day. Ethan sat alone, eating his sandwich, hoping to be invisible. But the bullies found him. This time, they didn't just push him. They threw him to the ground, kicked him, and left him bleeding in the schoolyard. He woke up in a hospital bed, his body aching, his mother crying beside him. Looking at himself in the mirror, he felt something new: rage. Not just at the bullies, but at himself. How long was he going to live like this? How long would he let others decide his worth? That night he made a vow: he would never feel powerless again. Chapter 3. The First Steps. Ethan begged his parents to let him learn self-defense. At first, they were hesitant. His mother feared that he would get hurt even more. But Ethan's father, seeing the fire in his son's eyes, agreed to take him to a local dojo. The first training session was humiliating. He couldn't land a single punch. His stance was weak. His movements were clumsy. But for the first time, instead of running away, he faced his struggles head-on. Day after day, he trained. His muscles ached, his body bruised, but he refused to quit. Slowly, something changed. His punches became sharper, his reflexes quicker. He started to stand taller, not just in the dojo, but in life. The boy who had once been too afraid to speak back was now learning how to fight. Chapter 4. The Transformation Begins. A year passed, then 2. Ethan's body transformed. He was no longer the frail boy who hid in the shadows. His movements became fluid, his confidence unshakable. But it wasn't just about fighting. It was about discipline, resilience, and self-respect. One day, he saw one of his old bullies picking on another kid. But this time, Ethan didn't look away. He stepped in, not with violence, but with presence. His confidence alone made the bully hesitate. It was in that moment Ethan realized strength wasn't just about fists, but about presence and control. He had spent years fighting his own fears. Now, he wanted to fight for something bigger. Chapter 5. The First Tournament. Ethan's instructor saw his potential and encouraged him to enter his first martial arts tournament. At first, he was terrified. Competing meant exposing himself, risking failure. But deep down, he knew this was another fear he had to conquer. The day of the tournament arrived. Standing in the ring, facing an opponent who had trained for just as long as he had, Ethan felt his heart pound. But as the fight began, everything clicked. Every movement, every counter, every block. It was as if his body had been waiting for this moment. The final bell rang. He had won. Tears welled in his eyes. Not because of victory, but because for the first time, he truly believed in himself. This was only the beginning. Chapter 6. The Road to Nationals. After his first tournament victory, Ethan became obsessed with improvement. His training intensified. Early mornings at the dojo, weight training at the gym, and studying professional fights late into the night. Every setback fueled his determination. His coach saw his dedication and encouraged him to enter the National Martial Arts Championship. It was a competition unlike any other, filled with the best fighters in the country. Ethan hesitated at first, doubting his readiness, but deep down, he knew this was the next step. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore, he was fighting for every kid who had ever felt powerless. Chapter 7: Facing the Best. The atmosphere at the Nationals was electric. Thousands of spectators, flashing cameras, and fighters who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. Ethan was no longer the small, scared boy hiding in the shadows. He was a competitor among champions. His first few fights were brutal. He faced opponents faster, stronger, and more experienced than anyone he had encountered before. But every time he got knocked down, he got back up. He adapted, learned, and countered. Then came the semifinals. His opponent was a reigning champion with years of experience. The fight was intense. Every strike calculated, every move critical. Ethan pushed beyond his limits, and when the final bell rang, his hand was raised in victory. He had done the impossible. He had reached the finals. Chapter 8: The Championship Fight. The final match was the biggest moment of Ethan's life. His opponent was a legend in the sport, undefeated for years. The pressure was immense. He could feel the weight of expectation on his shoulders. The fight began, and Ethan was immediately on the defensive. His opponent was stronger, faster, and technically brilliant. But Ethan had something else: resilience. He took hit after hit but refused to break. He fought smart, exploiting small openings, countering when least expected. As the final round neared its end, Ethan saw his chance. A perfectly timed kick sent his opponent staggering. He followed up with a rapid combination. The referee stepped in. Ethan had won. The once bullied boy had become the national champion. Chapter 9: Using his voice. Winning the championship changed Ethan's life. He was no longer just a fighter, he was an inspiration. Schools invited him to speak about bullying, self-defense, and resilience. He shared his story with children who felt powerless, reminding them that strength isn't just physical, it's about never giving up. He started an organization dedicated to teaching martial arts to kids who had been victims of bullying, giving them the confidence to stand tall. His journey was no longer about proving something to himself. It was about lifting others up. Chapter 10: A Champion's Legacy. Years passed, but Ethan never stopped training, teaching, and inspiring. He opened his own martial arts academy, where kids from all backgrounds could learn the discipline, confidence, and respect that martial arts had given him. He had gone from being a frightened boy hiding in the corner of a schoolyard to a world-class fighter, mentor, and role model. As he watched his students spar, he saw his younger self in them, the uncertainty, the fear, but also the potential. And he smiled, knowing that the cycle of strength and resilience would continue. He had turned his pain into power. He had become the champion he had once dreamed of. Thank you for following Ethan's extraordinary journey. His story proves that no matter where you start, perseverance and belief can lead you to greatness. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more inspiring tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Stay tuned for more incredible content from the English Listen Lab. See you next time!